We continue our story at the Autobot base, where Team Prime and everyone is kind of gathered around, or at least gathered outside one of the few labs that Ratchet and Wheeljack have managed to build since their time together. And Ratchet simply states, well, it's done, his brain power is boosted, at least to the levels that make him kinda normal, if you will. How do you feel, big guy? And this is where Grimlock gets off the lab table and actually sounds a bit more normal. Tutor says, great. A little bit more aware, I guess. And this is where Wheeljack simply states, well, it is about time we kind of made you a bit more smarter. You understand, we kind of wanted to leave you guys the way they are because you were a little bit more dangerous back then. To which Grimlock says, I'm still dangerous now. To which he's like, okay, yeah, fair point. And to which Ratchet chuckles at this, simply stating, alright, now that that's out the way, we can actually attend to everything around, or at least attend to every anomaly we've gotten so far. To which Arachnid approaches Grimlock and simply states, huh, I kinda like you more intelligent this way. Makes you a perfect combination of brain and brawn. Might make you deadlier. To which Grimlock simply chuckles at this. This is where Scorn comes and simply states, sir, when can we leave? I'm kinda eager if you're a little itching for a fight. However, this is where Ratchet simply states, well, Scorn, you won't have to wait for long. We've actually detected 3 anomalies. One from an Autobot communication, and this is where they show Wheeljack. The second one, we do have to talk about this weird energon signal we're getting. And then the next one, some Decepticon activity. And so, this is where Optimus begins to divide everyone up into teams. Act 1 kicks off with Masters and Students, with Optimus actually electing to take the Dinobots with him because it's a more deserted area. Plus, he wants to get to know them now since this is technically a brand new team for him. By the way, if you're wondering what that means, this means that the FOC or the original Prime continuity Dinobots do not exist. And so when they get to the area, they actually do find Megatron, who's out himself, and he's the one that summoned Skyquake, and he's pretty much explaining the situation. And this is where Optimus thinks to himself, perhaps we can actually go in and charge them, and maybe get the upper hand on. But this is where Slash actually states, actually, I have an idea. What if we do this? So after discussing, everyone splits up, with Optimus being kind of the forerunner, and he simply approaches Skyquake and Megatron during this conversation. Keep in mind, Optimus wouldn't normally do this, and this does kind of catch Megatron off guard, and he does state, Optimus, ever the eager to die, I see. Have you come seeking death itself? To which he simply states, actually, I was hoping you two would stand down and help me end this war. It's clear you're no match for us, Megatron, even with your new appendage. To which Megatron says, yes, I've been meaning to upgrade it for a while. But right now, what makes you think that either of us would stand down? To which Optimus smiles and actually states, actually, I think my new friends would actually be the ones to help you with that. To which Megatron simply looks at him like, what? New friends. And this is where Grimlock says, ahem, and comes in with a chin-rocking punch, and he straight up floors Megatron with that hit. And, well, yeah, safe to say Megatron felt that one. Yeah, you've been getting beaten up by this Dinobot for a minute. And to which Megatron tried to scramble, like, right back onto his feet. But Grimlock then comes in with a double hammer fist, keeping Megatron down. And he states, you insufferable Dinobot. Into which Grimlock simply pulls out his burning sword and puts it right at Megatron's face and says, go ahead, move. Give me a reason to end it right here, right now. And this is where Skyquake actually tries to jump in, trying to rush at Grimlock here while he has his back turned to him. However, Optimus gets in front of him, but before Skyquake can actually double back and get his gun, this is where it's actually swiftly taken by Slash, and Scorn comes from the side, making sure Skyquake makes no sudden moves. So, yeah, it doesn't look good here. Skyquake could get jumped at any moment, so he thinks, you call this honorable, Prime? Face me to decide the fate of my master. To which Optimus kind of looks at him and puts his battle mask on. And he simply asks Grimlock, is he secure? So Grimlock, being arrogant and kind of rightfully so, stomps Megatron right into the ground and keeps him pinned under his foot with his blade now pointing right at his back. So at any movement, it's driving right in. To which he says, I got him. To which Megatron says, you'll pay for this. I'll make you pay, you insufferable Dinobot. You and the rest of your species. And to which Optimus simply looks at Skyquake and simply states, very well, Skyquake. I will face you for the fate of you and Megatron. But know this, I will not use my weapons until the battle is done. To which Skyquake simply states, very well, and I will be in agreement to this. To which Slash also notes that this is honorable combat, so she will give Skyquake back her gun at the end of it. However, once the match begins, Skyquake charges at Optimus, and Optimus actually doesn't decide to fight him head on like the original. Optimus plays it smart, and again, can't say this isn't honorable because again, he's using his wits in a straight up hand-to-hand fight. So Optimus weaves around a large majority of Skyquake's attacks and actually realizes Skyquake is a bit more top-heavy than he is. He's a lot more armored. A lot stronger, yes. But again, while Skyquake does get some hits in, Optimus is able to land a lot more because he's faster. And keep in mind, Optimus is kind of fighting him like he would Megatron by the end of Season 1. So he's basically beating up on Skyquake, which I find pretty funny because that means Optimus Prime morals off would have taken Megatron's head off completely. So Optimus not only begins to beat down Skyquake, he actually begins to dominate him. Skyquake throws a right hook. Optimus grabs him and flips him over his shoulders, slamming him to the ground, and then comes in with an uppercut, sending Skyquake sprawling back. And then Skyquake tries to rush him again, but again, Optimus again begins to outskill him in hand-to-hand combat. Keep in mind, if this was with weapons, Optimus would have killed Skyquake by now. And I think in some parts of it, Skyquake knows this. Skyquake kind of had a feeling about this. Even then, Optimus is still holding back to a significant amount so that he doesn't flat out kill him with lethal blows. Meanwhile, Grimlock's kind of looking like, would have had this done already. To which Scorn is like, I wanted to fight somebody. But this is fun to see. Go, Prime, go. To which Slash is like, very interesting. I wonder what kind of form Optimus uses. Perhaps I can learn it myself. A nice combatant like myself, elegant and skilled. Perhaps I can use some sort of Cybertronian martial arts to my advantage. But that is for another day. And this is where Optimus actually begins to now beat Skyquake, throwing him to the ground one more time. But this time, when Skyquake gets up, he actually utilizes his signature, the Haymaker. We all know G1 Optimus just loves that Haymaker, right? Puts them hands together and says, boom, swing, batter, swing. And he knocks Skyquake right onto his back, defeated. And this is where Megatron's like, no, it wasn't supposed to end like this. And this is where Slash simply states, by the rules of the combat, Optimus is the victor. Thus, both of your fates are now in his hands. To which the Dinobots simply go, hoo-ah, finish it, Prime. And so this is where Optimus simply looks just for a moment. And he does think to himself, he could end this. He could really end this and take the advantage. And so Optimus prepares his blaster, but this is where a space bridge opens and Grimlock has no choice but to use his blade to block a fire blast that actually knocks him off his feet a bit, but he's quickly able to regain himself and block it. To which Megatron says, well, as I live and breathe, to think such a magnificent creature stands before me, and loyal to me. To which this is where you see Predacon walk out through the portal. And this is where someone else appears beside him. That being Shockwave. And he simply states, Lord Megatron, I have come to your aid at the request of the newer Decepticons. And this is where Grimlock turns into his T-Rex form, and Shockwave's like, fascinating. And well, Grimlock rushes at Predacon, Predacon rushes at Grimlock, and they begin to duke it out. However, Slash and Scorn immediately get to jumping. They've been wanting to fight since they got here. Now they got a Predacon. Yeah, they don't waste any time. And Grimlock actually stops fighting for a minute, like, you know what? They can have it for a bit. I ain't that prideful. So we see Slash dashing around Predacon, slashing at him. We see Scorn biting down and trying to ragdoll Predacon. But again, Predacon is still a bit stronger than them, as they're not in the same, I guess you could say, strength class. But this is where Skyquake uses this opportunity to grab his weapon and then shoulder barge Optimus and runs towards Megatron, asking him if he's okay. To which Megatron simply states his pride has been wounded again by that same Dinobot. To which Skyquake then says, then we will get revenge for you later. And they run through the space bridge, with Shockwave telling the Predacon to retreat. So Predacon jumps away from the literal slashing and gnawing he's been through and flies off at incredible speeds. And this is where the Dinobots simply state, so what was that thing? To which Optimus simply states, a Predacon, meaning we will have more trouble in the future. And this is where we actually see Megatron actually talking to Shockwave. Shockwave, while it is great to see you again, I must ask, how did you get here? To which this is where Thundercracker chimes in and actually states, actually, Lord Megatron, that would be me. Allow me to break it down for you. So, while you were away, I actually talked to Starscream. We were actually talking about the protoforms, and he said, it would actually be a lot easier if Shockwave was here. But too bad he's dead. To which Thundercracker remembers the Shockwave in his world, and is like, you sure he dead? The Shockwave in my world actually escaped death plenty of time. To which Starscream said, alright, you're free to go check yourself, and gave him the coordinates. So Thundercracker went in, checked, and then found Shockwave, explained the situation, and Shock was like, okay, let me bring this Predacon with me. But then they also tracked down a Predacon fossil that actually wasn't too far from their location. So Shockwave decided to bring it on board the warship, and well, we decided to come and help you, or have him and the Predacon come and help you instead as a little bit of a test run. But as you can see, you guys definitely need some medical attention. To which, after hearing all this information, Megatron's like, perhaps you Decepticons are all useful after all. And to which this is where Megatron simply states, yes, I would require some medical attention. To which Shockwave simply states, I'll be glad to provide it for you until Knockout and Breakdown return. And well, even Skyquake simply acknowledges that right now, he needs to rest, get himself prepared, because the next time he meets Optimus Prime, only one of them is walking away. And well, now we get to actually go into Act 2. Act 2 starts off with RC simply saying there's no way she's going out there with Arachnid of all people. And this is where Arachnid simply laughs and states, trust me, RC, I'd rather be going with the Dinobots on their mission than going with you. But maybe this is a good time for us to patch things up. To which the Autobots go silent like, oh crap, someone might die on this trip. And this is where Optimus simply says, enough, both of you. Right now, we need to work together in order to get the upper hand on the Decepticons, and maybe end this war quicker. So, after a while, RC, Jack, and Arachnid all go to, well, pretty much go to the same spot as the ruins were. And this is where Wheeljack actually begins working, stating, alright, well, I guess I'll start scanning and looking for anything rare of the Energon signatures here. And, oh, wow, there's actually a lot. Oh my god, there's really a lot here. Huh, this is actually pretty interesting. To which RC simply states, Jack, just keep your distance away from her. I don't need to lose any more partners. To which Arachnid kind of makes a chide comment stating that you already lost two. Killing the human wouldn't even be fun anyway. Besides, I like to see my victims die a bit slow and painfully. Not like to get it over with quick unless I absolutely have to. To which Jack is like, yeah, okay, I'm staying over here. But this is where two Decepticons interrupt. Breakdown simply stating, well, I was actually hoping Bulkhead would be here, but the traitor and the two-wheeler? Easy work. And this is where Knockout simply appears from the other side, simply stating, and a new Autobot. Quite the collection we can bring to Megatron today. Or, I should say, quite the amount of heads we can bring from Megatron. And, aw, look at the little human. To which Jack is like, I'm gonna stand here with Wheeljack. And Wheeljack's like, yeah, you two can take care of that, right? To which Arachnid is like, yeah, no problem. Just go back to scanning. So Wheeljack goes back to scanning, but he does have his hand on his blaster just in case he does need to shoot somebody. And so Breakdown's like, what? You two? Couple of fembots about to take on these big, strong, masculine men. To which Jack is like, wow, I didn't think robots had misogynistics in there. Okay, so I guess that's the thing. To which Knockout says, this will be easy. Let us get this over with and bring them back to Lord Megatron and interrogate that smart one over there since he looks like he's less interested in fighting. Probably a pacifist. To which Wheeljack is like, me, a pacifist? Oh man, that is definitely the joke of the day. Can't wait to tell Sideswipe and Grimlock that one. And this is where RC engages Knockout and Arachnid engages Breakdown. Now normally this would have actually been a long and dragged out fight. However, here's a different mentality here. Arachnid. Obviously using my What-Ifs, Arachnid is usually a game changer because she's the most ruthless one there. And this is the same thing. Breakdown does manage to blast off a limb, but this is where Arachnid utilizes her environment, actually outmaneuvering him on the rocks and stuff, being able to dodge, weave, and everything. And this is actually where, when Breakdown takes another shot, Arachnid full-on webs him right to the ground. And, well, jumps on top of him, and the last thing Breakdown sees is a slash coming right down on top of him. And this is where Arachnid begins to rip him apart. Yeah, just like in the original, she was capable of ripping him apart, so I don't really see too much of a difference here in all honesty. So, Breakdown meets a very quick end, and RC is simply like, well, okay, maybe Arachnid really is trying to prove she's on our side, even if it's her own endeavors. So this is where RC simply states, you know what? Good job. And keep in mind, RC has already beaten down Knockout. And Knockout, seeing the fact that Breakdown is dead, panics, transforms, and drives. And I mean, that dude is booking it as fast as he can. However, Arachnid gets a smile on her face and states, he's the squeamish one. He'll be more fun to interrogate. So this is where Arachnid transforms into her helicopter form, to which I definitely think she would have got it after maybe like a couple days, or maybe just after being with the Autobots, being their residential flyer. And well, she goes ahead and chases Knockout. To which Jack is like, he's not going to be okay, is he? To which this is where Wheeljack's like, well, or Q was simply like, well, when she gets done with him, he's definitely not going to be. And this is where Arachnid does manage to catch Knockout, kind of the same way she did with Breakdown, outmaneuvering him in his vehicle form and, well, webbing him up. Yeah, and she simply states, now you're going to be a good little Decepticon and tell me everything when we get back to base. And maybe I won't snuff your spark out when everyone's back is turned. To which Knockout's like, and this is where Wheeljack's like, well, got all the information we need. Let's go. Now we're going to Act 2, Con Job. This story kicks off with Sideswipe and Bumblebee being the ones to greet Wheeljack, quoting by the way. And this is where, honestly, Bumblebee's like, wow, he's actually pretty cool. To which Sideswipe's like, could have done better. And this is where we actually see kind of some of the things play the same. Albeit, makeshift Wheeljack here is a bit more nervous than the original. He doesn't know Goldbug Prime. He doesn't know Sideswipe. So talking to them feels a little awkward. And this is where Bulkhead does explain that they are from another dimension and, yada yada. But this is where he actually does start to pick up on the signs that Bulk or Wheeljack is not actually Wheeljack. And that, he kind of gets the same hints like he does within the original. So this is where Goldbug is simply like, if you suspect that he's not, him, kind of had the same situation with the Optimus back in my realm where he was also Megatron being impersonating him with a drone. But here's the plan, okay? And so Bulkhead is like, all right, yeah, I guess this will probably work. Wait, are you sure this is going to work? To which Sideswipe actually chuckling is like, trust him on this one. If anyone knows their Optimus, they know him. It's him. Or if anyone knows their Optimus, it's him. And this is actually a bit of a better moment between him and Goldbug, as Goldbug simply, looks at him and Sideswipe gives him a thumbs up. So the trap works with Makeshift not being able to actually get any of Wheeljack's other memories correct. And well, he grabs Miko and Raph in this timeline, kind of just a little bit of detail. However, when he opens the space bridge, this is where Sideswipe uses his super speed to dash on through. Keep in mind, he's moving so fast nobody could see him. And this is where he makes his way through the Decepticon ship. But this is where he comes across somebody, Mandible, one of his oldest friends, tied up and kind of strung up in the same corridor as Wheeljack. And he manages to free him first, asking him is he okay. However, this is where Mandible says behind him, and Skywarp jumps out and goes to attack him. But however, Sideswipe uses his blades to block the first strike, disarming Thundercracker, and this is where he slices off Mandible's restraints. But when Thundercracker tries to teleport around him, Sideswipe predicts it and stabs him right into his arms, disabling him completely. And this is where Mandible wastes no time. He's angry, been strung up there and tortured for God knows how long, or Primus knows how long. So this is where Horrible, I said Mandible, didn't I? His name is Horrible, excuse me. Actually gets not only beat down on Skywarp, but actually crushes his head on his leg. Well, pretty much stomps on his head, pretty much crushing him completely. And this is where Sideswipe was like, dude, I thought you were dead. To which Horrible's like, yeah, I thought you were too. And they kind of chuckle. But this is where Wheeljack's like, hey, can you guys get me down from here? And, well, Sideswipe and Mandible both help him out. This is where they make their way to the weapons cache area. And, well, Horrible gets his weapons back. Both his blasters, by the way. And this is where Sideswipe collects the immobilizer. And this is where the three of them pretty much get off the ship with 3 Autobots there. And I know Horrible's usually a Decepticon, but yeah, I'm going to actually give him an Autobot insignia because, again, it makes sense for the story. And this is where Wheeljack simply pounces on Makeshift like in the original, beats him up with Sideswipe simply stating, you know what? I got to take it back. He definitely is pretty cool, huh? And, well, throws him right back to Space Bridge and blows everything up. However, this time, the explosion actually kills Starscream, with Soundwave being the one being able to get away in time. So, this puts the Decepticons in the back foot even further. And this is where we head off, or at least kind of close out this part with the Autobot base and everyone pretty much receiving, I guess you could say, transmissions from the other 2 teams. And Ratchet, who was also there the whole time, actually bridges RC and Wheeljack's or RC and Q's team back in so that they can honestly meet Wheeljack and stuff like that. And this is where Grimlock simply looks at her like, hey, you actually caught someone. Great. Nice to know you're actually pulling your weight here. To which this Arachnid says, I also killed his partner. To which Grimlock actually gets interested. Oh, really now? How about you tell me all about it? To which she says, I'd love to. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. What's next for the Autobots? What's going to happen to Knockout? You know good and well that man's getting interrogated with maximum efficiency. And how are the Decepticons really going to deal with these setbacks, losing both Starscream and Thundercracker, but gaining the Protoforms and Skyquake? But that's going to be all for today, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe, and share with your friends. Share with your friends, excuse me. And I'll see you guys for part 4.